Okay, so today I'm going to give you a little background on me, and then I tend to be a lot more tactical than most people, so... Oh, sorry. I'll be a lot more tactical than most people, but I'll leave some time at the end. You guys can just kind of hit me with any questions. All right? Ideal customer profile. So you should be asking this of anyone you listen to, like, who is this guy? So my background is engineering. So I started doing, my philosophy was go learn how to build software so that I could then be educated and know how to sell it. So I have an engineering background, and then probably did 5 years of banging out code before I felt like I could deliver enterprise software, and then I got into the sales side. So I've been doing that for quite a few years now. But I tend to have a different approach than I think most people that I run into. It's probably just the engineer in me. Roughly greater than 10,000 contracts closed. I've kind of helped between myself and the teams that I've managed. You guys can read the stats. 3 crash and burns, very important. 10,000 interviews, 100 hires, 20 fires. I've just done a lot of stuff, but what I try and give you is just my war wounds, right? So any questions you guys have, I'll try and bring back to at least what my experience is. And one of the great things I think about every new company is you can have a lot of teams will come to me and they'll ask, all right, well, even if I've sold a specific solution into the exact same customer before, I'm now helping another team sell to the exact same customer, exact same pain point, maybe even displacing the team that I helped actually land the customer. It's all new, right? Every deal is organic. There's so many variables. You can make a lot of assumptions, but it's really specific around time and where you are in the market, and there's just all these variables. So again, you kind of have to have a systematic approach to just figuring it out every time. I don't think it really becomes any easier. I don't know, I've probably done 6 startups at this stage, and one I just launched middle of last year, and going through the exact same struggles that all you guys are. So it's just hard. I call it the shit show, but it's the best shit show in the world. I have the most fun. So that's me. Any questions? Whoops. Here's some teams, like you might recognize some names. Teams that I've helped. If you don't believe anything I'm saying, which you shouldn't, you should never believe what anyone's telling you. You should go ask people and see if what I'm talking about helps. Materially. So the broken record, I'll give you a few things that I get introduced to a lot of teams. Always my expertise or my experience is in SaaS and enterprise. And let me define that. Enterprise today, really in the modern context, all that means is you sign an annual contract. So if you sign a customer to 10K and it's an annual deal, welcome to the enterprise. So the threshold for, the reason it's called enterprise though is there's a different level of expectation around how you engage with that customer. It's not self-service anymore. People are committing mentally, psychologically to working with you for a long time. And there's just a higher level of expectation around what they're going to leverage out of your team's domain expertise. So that's really the enterprise. The threshold is pretty low now. But one of the things I hear over and over from founders and from teams, by the time I end up talking with them and they start to get it, they start to see the results of my approach, it's always like, man, I should have done this so much on my next startup. I'm going to do this day one. So the thing I think I really want to, if there's a few things I'm going to try and make sure I pound into your guys' heads, is the importance of this customer and selling, right? Because that is just as important as generating the product, engineering, and there's only 2 bottlenecks really. It's shipping code, shipping revenue. And there is no excuse for not thinking about this day one, even if you don't have a frickin' product. It's like, I've gone out and sold product, got customers to sign contracts with stuff that we haven't even shipped yet. And that's okay. Customers are okay with that. You just talk to them about, hey, great, we're going to be building this. This is what we're going to build. You can sign this contract. If we deliver X, Y, and Z, then you need to commit to pay us. But there's no blocker to getting a customer engaged enough where they're like, yeah, I'll bet on you guys. So really, if you're not thinking about revenue today, even if you're pre-revenue or you have a little bit of revenue, like there should be almost one eyeball, equal amount of focus that you're thinking about product. So I'd really challenge you guys around that. Next one. Really, again, now, I think most of the teams here are B2B. If you're in B2C, I have no experience in that. But the positioning, at the end of the day, if you're selling to an enterprise buyer, you're solving a business pain problem. And what you're selling at the end of the day is domain expertise. I don't care how many features you have, what widget you've got, how much faster, how many freaking CPU cycles you can do it better than anybody else. It doesn't matter. What they're betting on is you and your team knowing about this particular problem better than any team in the world. And the expertise will come out in two ways. It's going to come out in the product, right? That's the great thing about SaaS. It gets better and better and better. And equally important, it's going to come out in how you do what's now called customer success. It's basically how you support that customer and work with them and get to a position where they really feel like you're an extension of their team, right? There's nothing better. One of the benchmarks I have for teams I work with is if you get a Christmas card, like a handwritten Christmas card from a freaking customer, like that is, everyone, we're going out for drinks, whatever. That should be so celebrated because that means the customer really, there's like, thank you for really being a part of, an extended part of our team and making that sponsor successful, right? So, sell domain expertise, always. Ship code, ship revenue, I mentioned. Again, I think I'm going to write a little piece about this, but when I look at shipping code and shipping revenue, they are exactly the same thing. When you break them down as far as being quantitative in the process, right, there's basically a doppelganger for everything you do on the engineering side. It's just typically most founders of software companies, you're more product and engineering minded, right? But if you don't see an exact corollary thing on the sales side and the sales process and everything you're doing, then just ask why. Why not? Because there should be in every instance, right? Whether it's your agile sprints, whether it's your Salesforce, and how often you're going through the stages of your pipeline opportunities, how many demo calls you're having, all those sort of things, how much code you're shipping at the end of the day, and how much revenue you're shipping out of the day. Because those are the only two bottlenecks you'll ever have as a company. You solve those two problems, everything else is easy. And unfortunately, this is where everyone breaks eventually. At some phase of the company, either shipping code breaks, because now you've just got, now instead of 2 engineers, you got 15 engineers, and just, man, you just cannot, it takes this frickin' technical debt, right? But it's all about shipping code, and at the same time, it's how can you systematically get the process of understanding how you ship revenue. Measure your teams on both of those points, and you're golden. Last point, I learned this from first job I had, a big consulting company, but CFO stands up in front of everybody and he says, we are all in sales. I'm thinking, okay, whatever. But in reality, this is so true. And I don't think it's emphasized enough. I don't care if you're in the sales, marketing, product, customer success, sending out invoices, doing support documentation, documenting your code, whatever it is. At the end of the day, we have a customer, and all those different touch points that we have with the customer, we are all in sales. So don't try and like, oh, the sales team, or like, it's all of us. And I think the more you preach that to your entire team, helps break down a lot of the barriers around really engaging kind of the sales process in the same way that you engage the engineering process. So don't forget that. We are all in sales. Okay? Any quick questions? Otherwise, I'm going to trudge ahead. So those are my quick preaching points anyway. Ideal customer profile. So I was thinking about this because I just think it's like a funny, again, I'm going to be stage specific here. That's the other thing I really annoys me about a lot of things you might read. And it's not stage specific. So somebody's like, oh, well, we did this. And it's like, okay, well, your company was 300 people and you're at 30 million in runway. Different frickin' problems than you have when you're like, especially at this stage. 0 to million is like the hardest. I find it, to me, it's the most fun. But 0 to a million in annual recurring revenue is, I can't remember, there was a stat or somebody put out recently that said 94 or 98% of all companies don't even get to $1 million in ARR. It's like, come on, that's challenging. So, ideal, definition, most suitable, customer, a person or org that buys goods or services from you. So if you have somebody that you call a customer that isn't paying you money, I'm giving you the middle finger, because a customer is somebody who pays you something, right? Other than that, they're just a user. It's okay to have users, but customers, right, means they're paying you for what you're giving them. And profile, a short article giving a description of a person or org. So we're going to look at a description of the most suitable org that buys from you is how I would think about it. And so then we think about, okay, well, everyone's always asks, oh, what's your ideal customer profile? Well, I guess at kind of 0, you can't, right? Because you don't have any customers. You have a couple, but you don't even know what the ideal customer profile is. You're taking some guesses, some educated guesses, but you can't, and you shouldn't know yet. But the key that drives you to understanding this more is you have to have signed contracts, customers paying you, because that is a real data point, right? I can't tell you how many times I myself have done this in just doing customer development and teams that I've worked with where you sit down with somebody like, okay, we're thinking about solving this problem, we're doing this way, and the person on the other end of the table is like, yes, go, oh, that's so awesome. I love it. And you're like, great, and you're feeling awesome about you like solving this really painful problem. And then at the end of it, if you forget, I always have to remind myself, like, quantify it. And so I'll ask them, I'm like, okay, so if I solve this problem, would you pay $1 for this? Would you pay $10, $100, 1,000, 10,000, a million? Give me some rough order of magnitude. And you'd be surprised how many people go, whoa, 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 hold on. Oh, you're talking money now? Well, in that case, I wouldn't pay you shit. Like, ugh. Well, so the signed contracts, I can't tell you how important this is because, and that's why I get into it a little bit later, break down your customers into kind of the first tranche is just getting your first 10 signed contracts. Who cares how you get them? Just get them because it gives you data points. Now it will help you calibrate and figure out how do you get kind of 11 to 50. That's the next big tranche that I've seen in my experience is the most important. So anything, whenever teams come to me or I even look at our own product and we're getting feedback and I'm like, okay, wait, hold on. Who is telling us this? Is it somebody who's paying us or somebody who's not? Oh, they're not paying us. Well, then I'm like, okay, yeah. Let me focus more on the customers that are paying us because that's the stuff that you're trying to then identify and repeat longer term, right? So that's why for me the biggest, most thing I wish I would have learned a lot earlier was just get the contracts. Doesn't matter how, who, whatever. Doesn't matter the ACV. Just get them because then that's a hard data point. You got somebody to put pen to paper, which is the hardest thing to do. It's just like shipping code, right? Like until you've pushed something live into production, you have not shipped code. You don't even know what it takes. Same with sales. Until you get somebody to put a signature on a contract, you don't know what it means to ship revenue. You have no freaking idea. You don't know how hard it is to get that. I fucking celebrate when I sign like a $500 contract or a $5 million contract. Because the fact that you got finally somebody to sign like is almost an act of God, right? So that's why this is now so important because it really qualifies that this thing is real and you've got something to then benchmark off of. Everything before that, it's all gut feel, it's all qualitative. It's basically bullshit in my opinion. So, but again, these are things I wake up every day and I am living and breathing this stuff. So it's real. Stage specific focus. This is really important for me. Again, stage 1, just get your first 10 annual contracts. The reason they have to be annual, I really stress this a lot, is because when you're doing month to month, even if like, and I know like a lot of freemium products, you put your credit card in, just go month to month. You think on the business side, you're like, oh, it's just the least amount of friction for them to say yes. But the reality is that I've seen teams sign up customers $10,000, $15,000 a month on a month-to-month contract. You know how susceptible that customer is to churn? Like, they're not even psychologically committed to you. They're just like, yeah, I'm using it till something blows up and I can switch. So they're not really engaged even if the ASP or the MRR is really high. So annual, who cares about the ARR, the contract size, but the most important thing is that it's an annual committed contract. This is the reason why with New Relic, you're gonna get a call from a customer success engineer, even when you're paying like $50 a month to say, hey, would you like to commit to annual, right? Because this is not Lucerne's first rodeo, and he understands the importance of getting the customer psychologically into, you have to sell deeper and get them into annual contracts. So that's a must-have for me. Deal breaker. Make concessions you want all over the place, but the one I always tell teams, I'm like, you can blame me, blame the CFO. I have my little face up there. And if you come to me with a deal and there is not an annual contract, I'm like, fuck it, go back. Even if you have to drop if they can pay monthly, that's okay. But it has to be an annual committed no outs contract. It's the only requirement. Because if you get that, then again, you've got a real data point, okay? So don't focus on the ACV. That's even later stages. Stage 2, then, you've only got these 10 data points. I'll talk through about how you kind of then use that to go to stage 2. And then we'll talk a little bit about stage 3, but the other thing also to be thinking about, when you do your committed no-outs contracts, make sure they auto-renew, just because it just makes life easier. What you'll find is everyone's always asking me, like, oh, well, we signed our first 10 customers, and oh, we gave them such a reduction. And it was like, what happens when comes renewal time? Don't we want to go back in and ask for more money? I'm like, don't even fucking worry about it. You should be so excited that those people even signed a contract with you. You should kiss them every opportunity you get, because you'll get that tenfold in referrals and just in everything, right? And you don't understand, unless anyone here has ever purchased an enterprise piece of software, you don't know how much of a career risk that person has just put on the line. I tell teams all the time, like, if I went to work tomorrow at, I don't know, name some big company, New Relic, right? I'm the new VP of blah. And one of my team's like, great, Mitch is in there. We're fucking gonna close this contract so in. I'm like, do not come pitch me, because I'm like, I will not sign a contract with you. Even though I know your team is great and your technology is state of the art and you guys I love you, but unless you have 100 enterprise signed contracts, no one is gonna fucking bet on you. No way, they'd be crazy, because think about that. They're putting their career on the line for some small little startup. Doesn't happen, right? It's too risky. So, really, really, really be thankful for those customers that sign early on. And the fact that they just get grandfather pricing and auto renews, like, don't even worry about it, because the market's about when you get to the 100, the 200, the 300, the 500 customer, the thousands customer. That's then when all the learning that you're doing here, don't worry about it. So, simple things. So let's actually talk about stage 1. Again, I preach this to myself, mostly. Location, own your backyard, right? Like, that's one of the simplest things. I know everyone's physically here, but if you're located somewhere else, it doesn't matter. Like, if you can't get to your first 10 annual contracts within like 2 miles of wherever your office is, then you got a bigger problem, like much bigger problem. Like, nobody wants you're not solving a problem. So own your backyard. Huge, huge advantage. It's like one of the simplest things to do. I just dealing with this morning. We're like, we got a great lead, came in from somewhere that's not in our backyard. And I'm like, punt on it. We got to own it here. Next one, focus on, I would really 25 to 150 employees. It's a real sweet spot. So these are the criteria that I use on myself. So the reason it's 25 to 150 is because the company is not super small. When you're 0 to 25, you kind of will it's less expensive. You can just hack stuff together because you don't really need it to work that well. So, you're not going to go buy enterprise software. But if you're over 25, the pendulum starts to swing where you're like, okay, now it's build versus buy, and now I'm actually can sign an annual contract because I know I'm going to save all these engineering hours or time, right? Money isn't more valuable than time anymore. That's kind of the threshold. And the reason there's a cap on 150 is because when you get past 150, now the sales cycle becomes too long, right? Just the organization is too big. You're going to have to get through 2, 3, 4 people to actually get a deal closed. And you just don't have time for that. Not for your first 10, 20, 50 customers. Screw it. So use this as a criteria. At 150, you can still get to the CEO. You can still get to the VP. And that's where the conversations have to start. And you can either network in there. You can get pretty scrappy on how you can get to anybody who's a team less than 150. So hard limits there. The next one on the 10. Oh, yeah, yeah. It's got to be the CXO or the VPs. So we have this thing called dodge low, punch high. So if you get, the reason I love freemium products, freemium premium, is you're just getting lots of lead gen, right? And now, even though your ideal customer profile comes in, they fit this 25, they're in your 25 to 150, 100 employees in San Francisco, and I don't know, you sell a data product and an engineer comes in and signs up or starts using your product. Great. Don't go chase that guy, that person. Now you know that though that there's some problem there, because why else is he poking around? It's either his own personal pet project or his boss, which is usually the case. VP says, all right, we have a pain point here. You guys go out and investigate some of the solutions and come back to me. 1 or 2 weeks poking around, look at all the different stuff out there. So the thing is, you don't want to engage even at that level, but it's identified now, go straight over the top. You start the conversation with the VP, because if you, that ultimately is going to be the decision maker. They're the one you're going to have to sell anyway. And when you think about the problems you want to be solving, they're going to have a much longer term view of the value. They're not so tactical. And ultimately, you're trying, in the enterprise, you're trying to repeat and get requirements from that level of individual. So you might as well start there. If you try and sell bottom up, oh man, it is fucking worthless. It is so impossible to sell bottoms up in the enterprise. You can with freemium premium just getting lots of usage and everything, but eventually, boom, all the good teams, over the top. And then get pushed down. I think a gentleman mentioned it earlier today. Yes, that and get pushed down, that's the way to go. Because then at least you've got the ultimate budget holder is aware of you, and that's ultimately where you want to get your requirements from too. Oh, here's my, I love the VP of Eng. So I don't know, in my experience, if there's one person that always has budget, can always get budget, that dude, always, right? Doesn't, I mean, what CEO is gonna go, the VP of Eng goes, I need this, it's $4 million. They're gonna be like, okay, whatever you want. So I just find that they can make budget for anything, and if you're making a product that build versus buy, man, it's a no-brainer. Oh, our value versus one fully loaded engineer. Fully loaded engineer is like 250K. Our stuff, 100K or 60K or 30K. Now you're in no-brainer territory. Like, yes, okay, where do I sign? Right. So, even if I'm helping teams or I'm selling things that VP of Eng doesn't use, let's take like recruiting software or something. I'm going to try and back into figuring out how do I help this person the best, because if I can help the VP of Eng hire more engineers, boom, that's where I'm going to get the budget from, and that's the easiest place to find budget anytime in the org. So if you can cleverly find a way to back into that, that's great. Sales is also pretty good because you can tie yourself directly to top line revenue. All other areas are just a little bit tougher, right? Try and sell into product. Product doesn't really buy a ton of enterprise software. Marketing, yeah, you get small enterprise with the marketing automation stuff, put it on data science, but really that's, if I can get there, I'll go there. Yeah, thank you. So what about the business functional owners that are going to use the service? Give me an example. Mm-hmm.
And so you can try to sell to the technology people or the business people. Should you ever try to sell to both, or just want to go for it?
Yep, that's a good question. So the question, like, do you, when you have big enterprises, right, that I have a central IT group, but you have the business owner, do you still try and go in and back yourself into the VP of Eng? So this is stage specific. So this is still getting your first 50 customers. I would tell you to run for the hills if you're going and pitching a team that has like a full-on like internal IT department. It changes when you then get to, like, let's say over 100 customers. So if you're over 100 customers, yes, depending on your solution, the ultimate business budget owner is going to be, right? And I always do headcount. I always ask, like, so how many direct reports do you have in your team? Because headcount, people are always like, what are the revenues of your company? Give me 100,000 roughly in revenue per employee, or so, that's conservative. So if you ask how many direct reports do you have, we'll tell you basically how big of a budget this person owns, and that ultimately is who you're gonna get to sign off on the budget. So yes, but I would go there after maybe contract 50. Oh, your backyard. Oh, yeah. So California. Anyone know where California ranks on all world economies, the state of California? Any guesses? 6, 7, 5. All right, actually pretty good. 7, rather less than 10, but 7. 7! That's kind of own your backyard. When you're physically located here, you have such an advantage versus every other competitor that is trying to get to your customer. So I always think of, if you can't build a 10 million in ARR business by working in and again, it's pretty equally split between Northern and Southern California, so even just take Northern California, right? In our backyard, if you can't build a 10 million ARR business, you have a bigger problem. Like, really? And it's such a competitive advantage because, again, if you get FaceTime with people in the early days, FaceTime is what's going to close them. Going back to my first point of you're selling domain expertise. People will bet on you if they meet you face to face. It's the other thing that I really fucking kick all teams. I kick myself. I just went on a customer on site today, and they're in Potrero Hill, and I'm like, I got to go all the way down there. But of course, went, and it was awesome. So getting that FaceTime is where you're going to learn the most, where you're going to build the most domain expertise rapport, and it's ultimately how you're going to close deals, because you're not going to have the track record. Your product's going to be crappy. It's okay, but they will bet on you. So own your own backyard. That's my first thing I live by when I'm trying to do a new product. And guess who's number 8? These guys have nukes, military. If you know Nikolai Volkov, they have him too. He's pretty awesome. So don't forget that. Huge advantage to being located here. And now, especially the last 5 years, San Francisco specifically, right? Massive advantage, leverage it. You get FaceTime, you'll close contracts, I guarantee you. It's also great when you're, hey, see that you're 2 blocks away. Can I just come over and talk to you for 15 minutes? Most people, VPs, are like, yeah, you can come out. Great, you're in the neighborhood? Awesome. Yeah, I'll make 15 minutes, 20 minutes for you to come and pitch me. They will. Use that to your benefit. I'm right in your neighborhood. I'm 1 frickin' block away, even if you're not. Just say you're a block away. So then we get our first 10 data points. Great, boom. Now we're on to 11 to 50. So I always think about reverse engineering kind of the sales process, right, and who those customers are. So after each deal closes, it's really important to take a snapshot of everything, right? I do this thing called a win report and a loss report, but it's very detailed. It's like, because if you don't, and you'll get amnesia, you will just forget. There's too much other stuff going on, but all the context. When you have salespeople, that's the one point that they have to fill out all this stuff because it's fresh in their mind, and if you wait too long, it's gone, right? And it's the most important, when you're then trying to replicate. Because you'll forget all this stuff, but lead source, be detailed. Like, was this an investor intro? Did it come off of some LinkedIn group? Did it come off of, I don't know, you heard somebody met him in a bar, right? Like, that shit happens. If I know my ideal customer, VP, has a meetup where 10 of the best VPs of marketing all go to one bar on every 3rd Thursday of every month, guess where I'm going? That watering hole. So really be detailed about how you got this lead in the door and not just lead source, right? Like, be detailed, because you're going to use that when you're building out customers 10 plus. Always get the use case, the number 1 use case. And many times after even you sign a contract, the best salespeople I know and the best founders I know will actually just go back into that cut to whoever the sponsor was and just go, okay, so happy that you signed, but I have to genuinely ask you why. Why did you sign? And it's refreshing to be asked that when you bought stuff, because it's like, oh, and what they're going to tell you is totally different than what you think. But you're trying to calibrate to, holy shit, if they really value this one thing that I thought was just like a crappy little feature, whoa, my next pitch, I'm just going to pitch that one thing and see if it really hits a nerve. Because that's the thing, you're not trying to pitch all these features. You're trying to pitch the one thing that solves the highest pain point for that individual. So use case, really important. Again, be detailed. who the sponsor is. So if you're familiar with the different terms of people, the sponsor is not the person necessarily that signs. Sometimes they're the same person. The sponsor is the person that really is working for you on the inside. They're the one, they're like, God, I love you guys. We just got to get you in here. I'm going to help map out the account for you. I'm going to tell you who you need to talk to. I'm going to tell you all this, give you all this intel about what's going on here. And that's the person that ultimately is putting their ass on the line to get you in. It's their reputation. So really that sponsor, get everything you can about them. What I tend to find, again, this in all sorts of products, right? Except B2C, but all sorts of enterprise products, it's funny. I tend to see if you find marketers, if you think ultimately you're selling to marketers, then marketers, product people, salespeople, whatever it is, if I see in their background something mathy, right? Like either applied science background, engineering, anything, right? Econ, doesn't matter. I tend to find those people get it that much faster, and they tend to be more open to like trying to understand, because they probably many times have thought about, dude, how do I just build this and solve this problem for myself? So I look for that. But again, this is something to map towards, because it will help you then with your next outreach. Industry, of course, number of employees. This has to be a specific number, not this 0 to 250 BS. Give me the exact number of employees, because again, that's going to help you understand why my earlier point of 25 to 150. Number of employees, really important at that time that you sold. Location, of course, hopefully it's Bay Area, and then what the contract value is. And those data points then, you just put them in a spreadsheet and stack rank them, and it will give you a map to then figure out who you go pitch next. Okay? So the other things that, again, I wish I knew earlier. So the other things that you start to do, so first 10 contracts is go out and sign anything you can. Doesn't even freaking matter. Doesn't matter. The next ones, all that matters is speed. Get it signed as fast as you can. Then look at, every time you sign a contract then, look for lookalikes. So if I close a deal with Company X, I go to Crunchbase and I look at their direct competitors and I go pitch their direct competitor next. And they're fine with that, like, of course. But the reason you want to do that is because you already understand, like, the pain point. You understand the language. You understand, like, you come across as you have a lot more experience and expertise around that specific thing. And I guarantee you their competitors are having the same exact problem and the same exact use cases. Things you don't want to do are, trying to go chase or trying to go pitch, financial vertical, and then in the afternoon pitch travel, and in the afternoon, and then the next day pitch financial. It's really hard to context switch, and if you use the wrong language in travel, if you don't call it a booking, or if you call it revenue or something different, you don't call it a booking, then they're like, you don't even know what you're talking about. So it's little language things. So I find if I'm pitching lookalikes, man, the refinement of my pitch becomes so much better, so much more effective. So lookalikes, go there. Next one, I cannot believe how many times I myself do not do this. You've done all this to get these customers on board. You've built all this social credibility with them. And usually it's about 30 days. I find after you, and again, this is kind of small, as long as it's an annual contract, like $5,000 contract, all the way up to like $10 million contract. Usually it's like the first 2 weeks of the engagement, you really know whether they're ecstatic that they're working with you. It doesn't have to be working. They're just like, I'm so happy because you guys know what the hell you're doing, and I'm so happy that you're working with us. Usually it's within 2 weeks, certainly within the first 30 days. Within the first 30 days, you as a founder or even a salesperson or whoever, product person, can go back to that customer, your main sponsor, and have them just go 0 to 10, how happy are you with the experience thus far? And you can tell whether they're going to churn or not. Because if you have an annual contract, they can still churn. It's called, I'm not going to pay you, and come and get it. You're never going to collect. So it's like, good luck chasing that. So point being, after day 31, pour everything you have into getting that customer successful, and them just loving your team, and it doesn't necessarily mean the product, just loving your team. Then the next thing you do is you go ask that sponsor specifically for one thing, and one thing only. Could you give me an introduction to a colleague that you think would benefit from working with us? Just one intro. Don't do the, hey, could you give me any introductions? Lazy. Ask them for one. And most of the time, again, do it in person. And most of the time, they're like, oh, man, yeah, was just sitting down with Jennifer the other day, and she's the VP over at blah, and you should go call her. Sweet. Don't even give me an intro. I'm just going to say that I was pointing in your direction. You pointed me in her direction. Sound good? And like, yeah. And then you reach out, and boom, that's your next really super qualified lead that you have. Really leverage that. It's not intuitive. I have to remind myself to even do this. So you're doing all the hard work. Do it. And watering holes. Ask your sponsor also, where are the places? Everybody goes to places where they try and really geek out with the people in their profession, right? And sometimes these are different meetups or groups, or sometimes they're just like private little groups. I can't tell you how many, like, oh yeah, we get these 15 people together that are just the best in the industry. And the reason we all get together is because we're all freaking really good. We all learn a lot from each other. And it's not an official group, but they exist. And then you just need to ask your sponsor, like, oh yeah, I get together for poker night every third month with this group. Sweet. Is there a way that, I don't know, is there a way that you can tell me who's in this group? Or is there, again, you can leverage that. But if it's a bar meetup or they all go to Quiz Pub on every once a month, then guess where I'm going to be? Quiz Pub, and I might just magically be sitting next to him like, oh, really? And then my sponsors will be like, oh, Mitch, how you doing? I'm like, oh, great, okay, introduce me to your friends. Oh, yeah. So watering holes. Really think about watering holes. And then still, just focus. Can't tell you how much I get distracted also all the time. Where great lead came in from the UK. No. It's way harder to say no. Just say no, focus here. Because again, you're thinking about how do I get to that 50 contracts. Stay focused. 7th largest economy in the world. I tell myself that all the time. We have it really, it doesn't get any easier than this part of the world. I'm on time here. Okay, 10 after. I'm going to try and finish up here in 5, in case you guys have any questions. Come on. Move. Uh-oh. The internet is broken. Let's see here. What's my next one? Oh, recap. Oh, good. We're almost done. Why is it not giving me this? We're reconnecting. But like any good salesperson, I have backup. You guys better always have this. Come on. Boom. Because the internet will always go down. Shit will always, like, if you're doing demos, pre-tab everything, get everything front-loaded, you really should never have to refresh. Like, all these little things make all the difference between winning deals and losing deals. Wait. Oh, that's funny. Nice. So just to recap, focus on phase 1, then phase 2. Validate with annual contracts for the love of the big man upstairs. Focus on speed of closing, not the deal side. Speed. Just do whatever you can to optimize to get that customer to sign the contract. Boom. Days, everything, every time, every second is the difference. All the attention to detail around making sure the contract's right, the fucking emails are right, just everything. Like, if you're not on top of it, one extra day, I can't tell you how many times this happened to me, or teams I've worked with. One extra day, boom, sponsor's gone, or who knows. Market crashes, or something material changes, the deal's gone. And on the flip side of that, where I got contract signed, and then the change happened, but we got the contract signed, we're in. So every freaking hour matters, and leverage your competitors. So I always like teams that I just really respect in how they've built their businesses, in kind of this freemium premium model, which is, I love freemium premium enterprise. It's so incredible because, again, freemium premium is all lead gen for the enterprise. You're just waiting. Some customers are not appropriate to the enterprise. That's okay. But you want to get them into your products because you're in their toolkit. And there's so many times this happens where persons, they're in a small company. You don't have to go send salespeople or marketing people down their throats. Just let them have a good experience. And then they go then land that job at some big company. And you're in their toolkit. Guess who they bring in? Boom. So that's why I will happily compete with anybody who has the stop, talk to sales. versus freemium premium, I'll take that any day. Because even if your product sucks, you've engaged with the customer first, and you have first mover's advantage, which is, that's it. You should never lose it, really. Or if you lose it once, hopefully you're fixing it so you're not going to lose that again. And for somebody else to come around to dislodge you, you guys know it. It's got to be 10 times better. Always the case. So these teams really love. It's funny. A lot of these guys, their sales leaders are engineers. And they do a lot of the similar things that. But if you know people, or I always, whenever I talk to you, also I always go to operators and people who've built things, right? Always ask them to be stage specific. Like, can you go back in time when you were, at 0 to 1 million? Kind of like remember. And now here's my question. So always, when you're talking with people, get them to be very stage specific around you are, because you're trying to learn from that particular point in time. Okay. I really love HubSpot. HubSpot's a phenomenal engagement model. They're the best. The end. So I have a couple of things. If you have questions, obviously, between Mitch at Whaler, that's the thing I'm working on now. And I just had some other things if you guys, to stoke your questions. So if your contract, if your enterprise MSA, master services agreement, more than 2 pages, I will kick you in the shins. It shouldn't be. Anyone who gives you an 8-page MSA is ridiculous. They don't know what they're doing. Right here, oh yeah, obviously I get asked this a lot. The banned words, dollar jar, these are all things that I really preach for teams going from that zero to stages. I think of your first one is how do I get to 10K in MRR? Then your next phase of the company should have how do I get to 100K in MRR? And then the next phase of the company should be how do I get to 1 million in MRR? It's pretty simple, right? Don't overcomplicate it. It's like these different stages really are different team sizes and different problems that you're going to have. But it allows me to also keep the team very focused around just trying to get to that 10, then 100K in MRR, right? And how fast can we do it? Anchoring and positioning, always, again, when you're going into the VPs, and this is, it's awkward, right? To really, I can't tell you how many times of helping somebody out, and I'm like, no, your problem, because I know this problem, and if I wanted to build this, it's easily a team of 5 engineers, and that's like $1 million, and then I got to maintain it, and this problem isn't sexy enough that I can put my best engineers on, so I'm going to have my junior engineers, it's going to be crap, and it's not going to work, so you can go in and ask for 120 grand. 120 grand is a really simple, it's like 10K a month, make the math simple, right? So I'm like, it's easily a 120K problem. And pitching it that way, now what you're going to close the deal at, that's different, right? Of course, you might make concessions and strategic partnership and everything, right? Where you might make that, who knows, you might even go down to make it a 5K deal. It doesn't matter. The deals, but you're anchoring high. That means you're positioning around that high value point, because that's ultimately, as you get more customers, your team's going to get more confidence. You're going to understand customers better. You're going to have a track record, and you're going to now be anchoring. I find 120K is just a real sweet spot. It has been, I don't know, for me and my teams, 120, 150K for a long time. Because my hypothesis is that it's when you're into VPs, larger companies, director levels, 150, 120K isn't a lot. When you anchor that against a fully loaded engineer or fully loaded employee, it's like half to a third. And most directors at larger companies, like over 100, 150, VPs for sure, can kind of sign off on 120, 150K deals relatively quickly. You get over 150 and it tends to get to a whole nother level of approval. And now your CFO is really paying attention. And I just find that the sales cycle becomes like 2 or 3 times longer. So the key is land. Just land the freaking customer. You're always going to be able to go in and upsell them later on new products and new problems you're going to be solving and packaging up new things. Customers love it when you solve a problem and then you come back to them 12 months later and you're like, oh, yeah, you signed that annual contract. We have this new thing called the blah. It's solving this different problem, but because we already have all your data and it's already coming through our platform, we already know it kind of works. We can just turn it on for you. And yeah, it's another 120 grand. The buyer's like, thank you, thank you, thank you. Can you please do more of that? And if your master service is set up the right way, you have one underlying contract, it's just like a 1-page order form. Boom. Make it freaking easy for the customers, right? But that to me is always, when you're expanding, I hate usage-based. I hate like going in and asking the customers to pay you more for the same shit. Like, you wouldn't even want to buy that way. It leaves a bad taste in your mouth. But come to me with a brand new thing that even if it was kind of part of the product and you pulled it out and you repackaged it and now it's just a separate thing, customers are okay with that. They don't feel like they're being taken advantage of. They like that. They understand it's a different thing, and it now gives you the upsell process where, I have lots of examples of this where team anchors at 120, they might close a contract for $30K to start with. They come back 12 months later, they've got new product, guess what it sells for? $120. Customers is like, yep, nope, got it. You've already proven everything. Like, yeah, I'll happily sign it, let's go. I already know you guys are good, and you guys are the domain experts. So in that sales cycle, like the sales effectiveness is kind of like the deal size over the number of days to close goes through the roof, because and many times the deal size is significantly larger than your land. So that's why another great thing about SaaS. So anchor high. I have 10 minutes. If anyone has questions, you can ask me anything, except if it has to do with consumers.
In terms of, I always forget the order, but like, how do you break down the hierarchy in terms of the positions? So like, you got EVP, you got director, you got SVP, you got, whatever, all these different things.
Yep. How do you break down titles, right? EVP, SVP, CRO. So the first thing is that if you're dealing with 150 or smaller org, you don't have to worry about that problem. It's just VPs and directors. So that helps you. That's one of the reasons, again, I target smaller teams. Now, of course, you're going to get, I love we're a 5-person team and I'm the SVP. I'm like, okay, really? So team size, that's, again, the head count will kind of tell you, who are the VPs or the owners of kind of a specific budget. So I wouldn't really worry about the title so much. Focus more on the overall headcount of the company. So if you're targeting teams that have less than 150 employees, all right. So who are you targeting?
I would like to do more of that. We were trying to do more of that, but my clients are Paramount, Viacom, Fox, ABC.
Yep.
Huge companies.
Sure.
And each area that I'm working with is in research.
Yep.
Research is its own world.
Yep.
Within that world, the hierarchy of titles kind of remains the same for all the different silos.
Good. Yep. Good.
So I'm just trying to understand, like, what's the highest one? Because like sometimes I reach out to someone and say they don't get back to me right away.
Yeah.
I don't want to necessarily go step above their head and make that next communication. I might want to step someone below them and have them speak it up. Like, I want to be.
I got you. So that's also, it's very good around business units, right? So again, yeah, you go sign Turner. Guess what? You're not signing a contract with all of Turner, right? But the land and expand, you ring fence it by saying this business unit, maybe geographic or game studio, or there's always ways to ring fence a contract, no problem, right? So you'll know better than anything with the types of titles that you're going to talk to, right? Like, have you signed any contracts yet? Yeah. So like, I would look at what was the title of the guy that signed that contract.
Well, I never did it at a company that's over 100.
Oh, right. But yeah, but the first day I go ask that customer. He probably has worked. They probably have worked in larger orgs. Be like, hey, help me understand. Like, there's a lot of different titles in here. Which one should I go after? So again, I that's part of building the rapport with your customers too. Is they will help you navigate that. But usually you can, even just with LinkedIn, right? You can geographically kind of look at regionally where they are, and you kind of get a GM for a group, and you kind of know that the VP of customer insights that's in Irvine, and there's a small business unit that you can kind of triangulate that way. So, but ask your customers. Yep.
You talked about trying to get to close as quickly as possible.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm trying to offer some deals with customers that have been in that pipeline for a while.
Yeah.
But I'm waiting for how big a deal I should offer them up front. And I don't want to give away too much.
Yes. Why don't you want to give away too much?
Well, so at first I was going to say 10% off for your first year, but that doesn't seem like enough. And someone said, oh, go for 50%, just get them in there, and they're your customer forever. But that seems like too much.
Yeah.
Just, do you have like any advice on what works best
Yes. Okay. Did everyone hear that? Want me to repeat it? I was like, how to offer reductions, right, in order to kind of speed up the close. So there are a few things in kind of your thinking that I'll challenge you on. One is when you think like 10%, the D word, don't say discount. If you fucking say discount, I will come punch you in the gut. Because you want a discount, you go to the dollar store and you buy a hammer and you get a 10% off, right? Like, that's so commoditized in the tool. We want to get domain experts on the other end of the table, right? So no discounts, and there's no percentages of, I hate it when I see annual contract, 20% reduction. I'm like, that just, when an enterprise buyer sees that, they're like, oh, this is tool level. Like, it's just a perception. No one in the enterprise buys that. Like, they put value on, yeah, every enterprise buyer knows they're gonna negotiate with you. That's part of their job, so get used to it. And that's okay, it's healthy. But part of at least making sure you anchor high, so I would always have just some standard annual contract size that you say is like your starting point, right? And whether it's 30K, that's fine. After you close a few contracts, maybe you up it to 60, and maybe you kind of up it to 100. But be consistent, because you don't want to be all over the place. It's hard to kind of be consistently pitching that way. But so say anchor it around a particular price point, and then from there, right? I think there are two threads. There's product, technical yes, product yes, and then there's commercial yes. Never start talking commercials until you've nailed, you have the customer saying, yep, product, regardless of what we structure this thing to be, cost-wise, are you at product yes for like this like phase one? Not your laundry list, but like for what you need to do right now, are you technically thumbs up? If you get that, only get that first, then you can flip over and now have a commercial conversation. So if you're in any of these deals where you don't even know if the customer's at technical product yes, you got to go back there. And sometimes even that's not the VP, it's actually the lower level person that's using it, and that's the person you need to go back and get technical yes from. Get technical yes. Once you get technical yes, you will not lose the deal. You won't. Because you have, I love talking to business buyers, and you're like, your team just signed off on this, and they totally want it. And now you're having a more normal discussion on okay, what kind of reductions can I give you, given, can you commit to signing a contract by a particular date, right? So you focus on product yes first, and then flip over to commercial. And really the commercial, again, requirement from Mitch CFO is, I even have I did a what do you call those things? Fat boys, like things it's the things you stick on the wall. And I took the picture of the guy, the H&R Block dude, anyway, CFO guy on TV. And I stick it up on the wall, and I'm like, just point to that guy. The CFO, he asked for one thing, annual contract. So just tell your customer that, like, it has to be an annual contract. Now, outside of that, I can be really flexible on every frickin' thing you want because we want you as a customer. And then you kind of have to use your judgment. But it isn't a 50% off or 10% off. It's like, hey, first give me your commitment date. If we get all these things, to a place that you're comfortable, and then I always ask, what's the number that's simple for you? I'm not going to commit to it because I got to go talk to the CFO. And it isn't like this car salesman bullshit. It's like, no, genuinely, no one. I don't care if you're the CEO of freaking a 500-person, 1,000-person company. Everybody has to get buy-in from somebody, always. So nobody just makes carte blanche decisions. So it's genuine. It's like, I'm CEO, but I got to go back and I got to run this by my team, my finance team, my board, whatever it is. But you certainly have a little bit of buffer that you're not negotiating to come to a decision. You're gauging what that customer needs in order to make it simple for them to sign. And then you're like, okay, I have the data points. Now let me come back to you because you're at product yes. And then I can come back to you and focus on the commercials. So breaking those into two separate threads, I found really helps myself focus, and it really helps the teams that I work with focus, because again, you get a team to product yes, you will not lose the deal. If you do, come ping me and I will send you a bottle of wine. Oh, sorry.
Except the annual, we also talked about auto-renewal.
Auto-renewal, yeah.
How do you do that? You just send the invoice, or do you talk to them? Do you get the buy-in on the...
Tricky. So always in your contract, it just says terms auto-renew, right? It's like one sentence, right?
But that's one thing, but it's more...
Now, the practicality of it, right? And there's no right or wrong solution. There's no right or wrong answer here. You kind of have to experiment with it a little bit. So tend to, I don't want surprises. Customers don't want surprises. So if that means, but you also, your customer success should be engaging enough so it's not like 30 days before contract renewal, you get a call from your customer success manager. Like that to me is like, okay, you're kind of pouring on the love now because you want to make sure this renews. So make sure you have a normal cadence of customer success. And then I would 3 months before, I'd be asking like, hey, on a 0 to 10, quantify everything. 0 to 10, how happy are you that just you're working with us? If they're like, I'm an 8. If they're like, I'm a 5 or 6, better do whatever it takes to pour it on, right? If that means CEO going on site and everything, like, pour it on. There should never be a customer churning. To me, churn's unacceptable. It does happen, but like, you should be able to pour on just the personal time in order to make sure that renews. So for me, some teams just like never trouble kind of mentality. Done that too. Sometimes, you stack rank your customers based on contract size and just make sure the big guys are going to renew. Because the auto-renewing is set up where they can terminate at any stage. And you can too. Like remember, if the contract is underwater, you're losing money on a deal. I happily go to the customer like, sorry, it's renewing and we're terminating. And so let's renegotiate this thing. Every time the customer's like, okay, yeah, of course. So the annual, it should renew, but I would always get in front of it and make sure the customer's happy with that. And then the contract, yeah, you just then send the invoice or you just charge a credit card and it just keeps going. 9 times out of 10, everything's good and you don't want any friction to like, I can't tell you how many times teams have set up where it's like, oh, you have to go execute something to get the renewal signed? Holy shit. Just getting sometimes people just to click sign something is like vacation, like it's so hard where you just want the teams to keep working together. So teams are okay with auto-renew. Does that make sense? Yeah. Last question maybe?
With smaller size like platforms, smaller fee platforms,
Mm-hmm.
even if it gets sent to like a high person, they'll obviously have to send it down to like a marketing director.
Mm-hmm.
You have a great call, they get excited, but then you're relying on them to portray
Yes.
the vision and whatever said. And I find sometimes they come back and say, oh no, not yet, but
It's hard.
obviously they didn't sell it as well as I did.
Of course.
Their job. So do you have anything, like you can't force the CEO to spend a call to like a $400 a month like marketing product?
Yes.
Is there anything you have?
Yeah, so question around like, so you get VP push down, you pitch the middle manager turns around, tries to pitch the VP, but obviously they can't pitch as good as you can, right? So there's a couple of things there. One is you always need to be asking ultimately like, okay, here's the teams might ask like, what's the rough order of magnitude? Are we talking 5,000, 10,000, 100,000, $1 million, just to kind of know? They might ask you, but like you need to give them some rough idea of what an engagement might look like. And then you need to be asking them, okay, so ultimately who needs to sign off? Who has authority to sign off for that level of purchase, right? Usually it may not be the CEO, depending if you said it's smaller price. Many times either the manager or their director or direct report may be the ultimate sign off. So always just ask. It's not like, don't be embarrassed about it. Like, hey, like for purchases like this. The other thing I always also ask is like, tell me other things that you've purchased. They're like, oh, I purchased Google Apps, I don't know, Trello. And like, okay, you haven't even purchased enterprise software before. But if they're like, no, I bought Marketo. Oh, did you do the contracting? Yeah, okay, you got your person. So that's one ask who kind of ultimately you have to get the thumbs up from. And then secondly, distill the pitch down to like one key pain point, right? The one. And you want to reiterate that because you kind of do your general pitch call. Every pitch call should be 15, 20 minutes max, but you're doing a lot of Q&A in there. And make sure you beat it into their head, the one problem that you are going to solve for them, just so that they can internalize it, because they're going to forget 98% of the stuff you pitched them. But just so they can go like, boss, this will solve this. And like they've heard it so many times, you have a higher probability that at least they pitch it the right way. So that's one, keep the messaging super simple, which I find hard to do. It's hard to kind of, I ask after I pitch, I go back, I'm like, so what's one thing that you remember from this call? I'm like, I remembered this. Might be something that you focus on. And then the other one is, not case studies, don't just flood them with crap, but if you have a very specific, no more than 1-page product brief that speaks to like one pain point, that's the thing at least they can get. They heard the pain point pitch, they probably can regurgitate it, but they've also got that piece of paper, and now they can not only forward it to their boss, but you're selling through. So you have to position and make that thing like you're selling to this person. So that's the other thing I found, those two things. Simple messaging and a 1-page, super simple product brief that speaks to the VP or the director. Make sense? Can you get off here? Okay, sorry. But again, if you guys want to email me, I'm just on Sansom. I live in the city, so more than happy to answer questions to you all over email.
Okay, so we just passed first 15 customers contracts and
Paying annual? 15 annual contracts?
no,
Just like month to month?
I'm in advertising.
Okay, insertion order based type of business? Okay, but they've signed insertion orders and they're paying you money?
Yeah.
All 15?
Yeah.
Nice, good job.
Not
That's awesome.
annually.
That's okay. Insertion order business is a little bit different, like marketing.
So I'm spending half of my time now doing customer success and half of my time selling, and I'm wondering.
So am I.
Yeah, at what point I can outsource customer success, I guess. I'm learning a lot in that, but I'm doing less sales, so it's
Yep.
kind of hard.
And that's a fine line, and you just kind of have to monitor it, right? So I cringe at the word outsource, because you'd never outsource insinuates that you're handing it off and you don't have to worry about it anymore. No. So can you get a resource then that is going to manage the customer success piece of it? Absolutely. You're gonna have to backfill and get somebody in there. Usually this isn't a junior person. I really hate customer success has this big. Customer success has this big spectrum now. It's like low-level support, like you get transferred 20 times to some person in some third world country, all the way up to like consulting. McKinsey is now all customer success. You want to be closer to McKinsey in that caliber of person, because now you've onboarded them, you got them past 30 days, they're happy, you want them, and your team is going to learn so much by actually just working with that customer, because that's where you do all your learning. That's where you get all your use cases. That's where you get like, holy shit, I didn't even know that they could use it for this. Next great product feature. All that stuff starts to come from your customers. And then when you're selling, you're like, I'm not even going to pitch you. All I'm going to tell you is that this is what a customer just did, and this is a story they just told me. And this is the customer, how they solved that problem, and this is how the customer solved that problem with us. Like, you're not even pitching. You're just talking customer stories. So your customer success person has to be, experienced enough that they can gauge that, go. It's not a person just fresh out of school, right? It's like a mini you. Somebody that has the depth that can understand it and also pull those stories together. But you got to backfill it. So it's not, and in the interim, got to do both. But always stack rank your customers so that your entire company knows who's the most important, second most important. I just did this with my team last week. It's like, where are all the customers? Because they all hear the names, but they don't necessarily know that this one is not paying us the most, but it's strategically important because we nail it for them and we have like upsell opportunity or whatever. So I find stack ranking all the customers and keeping that up to date also will help you understand where to focus. And if some of the small guys churn, hey, can't do it all, right? It's going to happen sometimes, but you want to be getting better. And sometimes it's because of resource allocation, and it's like, hey, it's as long as you keep your focus on the highest value. Okay. Good job, though. Keep it up. Hey, guys. Thank you.